About 32 years ago, I read my first book on time management. That book was this book here called The 10 Natural Laws of Time and Life Management by Hiram Smith. Now, if you don't know, Hiram Smith was the father, the founder, the creator of something that became incredibly famous, something that became iconic in the world of time management in the 1990s and early 2000s. And that was one of these. This is what is called a Franklin planner. Although when it was first created, it was called a Franklin Quest, because that was the name of Hiram Smith's company. Now, Hiram Smith had spent years studying time management and studying productivity and how to get us to ensure that we were focused on the right things every day, every week, every month. And that all created what I consider to be the fundamental principles of better time management and productivity. And in today's video, I want to go through what the time or the Franklin Planner system was so that you can learn from that and use some of these strategies in your own probably new digital system today. So let's get started. First up, there are no quick fixes to becoming more productive or better at time management. And there's certainly no quick fixes at getting better at prioritizing your work. If you want to become better at prioritizing your work and knowing what you should be working on and what you probably shouldn't be working on, you need to do what I consider to be the back-end work. Now, Hiram Smith and indeed Stephen Covey, who bought Franklin Quest, would say you need to establish what your governing values are. Now, your governing values are the things that are critically important to you. Now, one of the problems that you will find if you read this book is establishing what your governing values are is very open-ended and can take a very, very long time. Now, I created something called the areas of focus. What I realized was there are 8 areas that pretty much all of us will have at some point is going to be a priority to us. And establishing what they are, defining what they are, and what you need to do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis in order to maintain that balance, that is what I think is critical. That's, to me, a fundamental principle of becoming better at time management and productivity. You've got to know what is important and what is not important. Now, in the Franklin Planner, one of the great things is you have a whole section for your governing values and you write those down in your planner. You define them. So basically at the beginning of every year, in your new book, you could write them down if you wish, or because of the way that your planner is structured, you can actually just take them from the old year and put them into the new year. Now, in digital world, it's very simple. You can just create in your notes app, as I have demonstrated many times, a section in your digital notes app called areas of focus. You create some subfolders and you have those for your 8 areas. And there inside that, you can define your own areas of focus and what they mean to you. That does save a lot of time. The key is that you need to review those pretty much every day. So it all starts at the bottom of what Franklin Covey calls the productivity pyramid. It starts with your governing values. Now, I could spend all day talking about the productivity pyramid, but just to save, I can show you here on screen what it is, but it starts with your governing values, your goals, weekly planning, and daily planning. That's really all you need to know about the productivity pyramid. You can go and learn this online very easy. Just do a Google search for Franklin Covey or Franklin Planner productivity pyramid and you can learn all about it on there. There's videos, there's articles, tons of stuff. What I want to do now is just take you through what the Franklin Planner looked like on a daily basis so that you could see and learn from that into your own digital system. So let's have a look at the Franklin Planner as it stands in your system today. So the whole system, if you're using the classic Franklin Planner, the classic size they called it, you would have on the very left-hand side your prioritized daily task list. Now, the way that you prioritize this was ABC method. Now, this is something that David Allen rubbished and said it doesn't work. I actually disagree with David Allen here because I find that it does work because it helps to give you clarity on what your most important things are for the day, rather than just looking at a random list of stuff and hoping that you'll be able to guess the most important thing, which is very GTD. It's kind of, okay, I've got my computer with me, I've got my phone with me, these are the tasks that I can do, which one do I do? I never found that particularly helpful because it just meant that I now have that paradox of choice. I have way too much to choose from. What I need to know is, what are the most important things to do today? Now, with the Franklin Planner system, you have three. You have A, B, C. A stands for must do. You must do these today. B were things that you should be doing today. You should do today. And C is, if you can, maybe could do today if you have time. So you think of it as must, should, could. So that's your A, B, C. And what you would do is you'd write down all the things that you needed to do today into your list, and then you would start writing out A, B, C, and then you'd do 1, 2, 3. So what was the number one most important thing to do today, which in the world of Franklin Planner was always your planning and solitude? That was A1. It must be done, and they would advise you doing it either late at night or first thing in the morning. And then A2, A3, and so on. Then you would do B1, B2, B3, B4, and so on. You get the idea. Right, next to the prioritized daily task list, you had your calendar or your appointments for the day. And that's where you would write out or write down the appointments that you have for that day. Now, the wonderful thing about this is you've got your tasks on the left, you've got your appointments on the right. It's on one single page. You could see instantly that your day was impossible if your prioritized daily task list had too many tasks and you were stacked with meetings back to back all day. You would see it, it would be there, it would be obvious before you started your day. The problem with digital tools today is your task manager doesn't tell you that because you don't have the calendar right next to it. And even if you do, most people are just throwing stuff into their task manager. Then they get to the day and they go, oh, I've got 40 tasks to do and I've got 8 hours of meetings. The relationship is not there. Even with those apps like Things3 and TickTick that do have a built-in calendar and the upcoming reminders from Apple, it's still not helping you very much because we're throwing tasks in blindly. We're not seeing the calendar at the same time that we're throwing tasks in. With your Franklin Planner, you could not avoid but miss it because it's there, it's fixed, it's a fixture. Now, on the right-hand page, you had a place for putting notes. Now, if you notice on the screen here that there is a margin on the left, and that's what you would do to number the items. That would be helpful for future because that gives you a reference number to come back to. So, for example, you write a note about a meeting in 6 months' time. What you would do is it'd be like note number 1, and then there's a meeting about 6 months' time or a workshop or something that you're doing. And then you would just put the date. So in this case, whatever the date is, you put the month, the year, and the day, number 1. And that would tell you exactly where your notes are from that particular part. And then further back in the book, you've got places for information. You've got your calendars in here. You've got plenty of spaces for notes, and you've got like this 1, 2, 3 section at the back, or in this case I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the great thing about that section is that's where you keep your project notes. They would be at the back, and again you are limited. In the traditional original Franklin Planner, you would have 5 tabs. In the leadership one, which is this version, you would have 4 main projects that you're working on. Now you can have multiple more projects, but these were the current projects that you were working on. And as I say, the great thing about that is it restricted you from doing too much. And then at the front of each month, you would have what's called a master task list. And you would have a section for your professional area and a section for your personal life. And you would write those down in there for things that you weren't sure when you were going to do them, but you needed to do them at some point. And that was it. And you carried this thing with you everywhere you went. You just carried it with you. And yet today it seems to be quite a lot to carry around with you. And I think back in the mid-2000s, Franklin Planner brought out something called this, which is what they call their satellite. And I remember carrying this with me. And basically, it's just an area where you could quickly capture stuff into this, and then you could transfer that to your main system if you didn't want to carry that around with you. But they also had something else which I thought was brilliant. There was this little plastic bookmark that you would get, and this plastic bookmark is actually a sleeve. Now this has probably been 15 years. Oh no, it does pull out. So I've got a blank one here, and it is in Korean, but basically, you would write, it's the Sharpen the Sh. So if you've actually read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you know the chapter right at the end, Sharpen the Sh. So, and this is where you would put down those things that you decided, these are the things that you needed to focus on in the different roles in your life. It's a book I would highly recommend, but this is something that I found incredibly powerful because it meant that I was able to keep focused. This would be on my daily page. So every day when I did my planning, I saw what my most important things were for this week. And this is what I write down in the weekly planning session. And the great thing about that was every single day I got that reminder. One of the problems with the digital systems we have today is we can type loads of stuff into them, but then when we're not in front of it, they disappear. They're hidden. They're not in front of us. We don't get that same connection that we always had. Now, one of the other things, and just to finish this video with, is this thing here is what was called, this was the last time, the last year, no it wasn't, 2009 is the last year, this is 2007. But this is one of the last years that I used a Franklin Planner. I finished in 2009 and went all in on getting things done. And yeah, sure, it did work for most of that time, but today I find it doesn't work. As I say, there's problems I find with prioritization and all sorts of other things. But anyway, these little file folders, we call them storage binders. I have one for every single year since I started. Now, my initial ones before I came to Korea are in my parents' home over in the UK. And the ones that I've done in Korea, so 2002 right up to 2009, I have right here in Korea. But the wonderful thing about it is, when I looked through these, I was just amazed at what I was doing. I was already using verbs at the beginning of the task to be able to be clear about what I wanted to do. And it's just been a great little, as I've been researching this video, it's just been a world of nostalgia. I actually noticed in here, I have a note from a student who was apologizing they couldn't make the class. It's amazing what I have kept. And I thought, whoa, this is really, really nostalgic. I even found a letter that my wife wrote to me about 3 months before we got married, and we've been married 16 years. It's just, digital cannot beat that. You know, digital is just the same mundane, boring stuff. You check it off, it disappears into the ether, never to be seen again. These have amazing memories. And if you want to build a life that you can look back and see your progress and see how well you've done, I would say perhaps you want to consider using something more analog. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should just quit whatever task manager you're using, quit the digital notes. Those things have incredible value today. I've been using Evernote for almost, I think it's 16 years, 15 years this year. I've been using Todoist for over 10 years. You know, there is a lot of effort. I understand them, I know them, the muscle memory's there. It is way, way faster than using this analog Franklin Planner system. But one thing I have learned about time management, you know, the tools, the fashions, the formulas, all those things change, but the principles never change. You still need to know what is important to you. You still need to understand that there is only 24 hours in a day, and you still need to know that, you know, if you're not doing the weekly and daily planning, then it doesn't really matter what you're throwing in there. You're just going to end up with an overwhelming list of stuff to do, some of which will be important, some of which won't be important. Now, if you want to learn more, if you want to learn 5 more things that analog is better than digital, then this video up here is the one to watch next.